Hi everyone, it's Alicia and I am here with your October prep session for Grace Art. Before I get started, I just wanted to again welcome any newcomers to Grace Art. This is the format that we'll use each month to share an overview of the artist and the project and just give you a few tips and ideas to get you on your way for your session each month. If you haven't already, or if you're not getting the Google group communications from Grace Art, we want to make sure that you get subscribed to our Google group, and you can get to that link by going to the PTA website. Just Google Lake Ann Elementary PTA and you'll get to our PTA website, and there's a tab for Grace Art. So just click on that tab and you'll see the link there to connect to our Google group. So all of the PowerPoint and information and just updates are going all through the Google group. So if you're not already receiving them, please go ahead and go to that link and we'll make sure that you get all the information you need for Grace Art. Thanks to all the classroom liaisons. We're almost scheduled for all of our classrooms. If you are the liaison, just a friendly request that once you've got your schedule set, if you haven't already, if you could go ahead and set up a Sign Up Genius. Unless you're in a classroom where you have very little parent participation, but so far this year we've had pretty good turnout. And even if you're in a classroom where you don't have a lot of turnout yet, setting up a Sign Up Genius will really help us as we start to promote the sessions for classes that may be a little bit under-volunteered, understaffed right now. So liaisons, if you could, once you've got your dates set, create a Sign Up Genius for your dates for the classroom. And I'll suggest that you make one slot that's for the presenter and then as many slots for assisting assistants as you can make it unlimited, and really more hands, the more hands, the better. But I think it helps for everyone if one person kind of takes the lead. That way only one parent has to really do the homework and prep. Of course, anybody can watch the prep session and get familiar, but it's nice if one parent is kind of taking the lead and does the presentation, and then everyone else can assist. And especially for this month to kick off, there's some setup that it would be great if you have some extra hands assisting around the classroom as you're doing the presentation. So please set up the signups. I'm going to be following up next week with classrooms that have low volunteer participation to create a flyer just for your classroom for the session that has Grace Art. So if it's AM or PM or Blue Day or White Day, we'll set up a flyer specifically for those families. And if I have the Sign Up Genius, then we can really help guide parents towards that information and get you the turnout that you're hoping for in your classroom. The mingle, so in the survey, thanks for all who completed the survey about the kickoff. If you didn't get a chance to attend the kickoff, there is a video recap, a YouTube video recap. That link is also on the Grace Art tab of the PTA website. And I asked for preferences around dates to have an in-person, very informal, just volunteer mingle get together. And it looks like the winner is Wednesday the 26th from 7 to 9 p.m. We're going to meet at Calypso's Tavern down at Lake Ann. The time is going to be 7 to 9. Feel free to drop in anytime. Come for the whole time, come early, grab something to eat or just a drink, but it's just a chance to informally get together and chat. And hopefully by that time, many of you will have already done your first session so we can get some feedback and share how things are going so far. I'll mention that in the email that goes out with this, but I hope you can join us for that mingle. And so let's get started. This month, we're focusing on the art of Piet Mondrian. I spent a little time Googling how to pronounce his name, and apologies if there are any Dutch volunteers or volunteers that speak Dutch, please correct me, but it sounded like it was Piet Mondrian. And I'm going to switch over to the PowerPoint now and just give you a quick walkthrough with a few highlights on prepping for the session and getting ready for your setting up the 3 big ideas. So as in years past, we are focusing on 3 big ideas each month, trying to distill down into just 3 big concepts and giving you some supports to facilitate conversation. But this part of the presentation should really take no more than 10 or 15 minutes. We want to spend as much time for the children really getting their hands into the art. So the PowerPoint this month has a few more slides than normal, but I'm going to show you there's a nice progression. And so you're going to kind of speed through part of this PowerPoint to help spark some conversation. So the first big idea Piet Mondrian was a Dutch painter. His unique abstract style has had a big impact on modern art. In addition to the PowerPoint, or along with the PowerPoint, there are notes that go with each slide, and you'll see bullets for each slide to kind of walk you through. Of course, if you have more information or want to go in a different direction, you're certainly welcome to, but the idea is to give you as much scaffolding to make this as easy as possible. So on each slide, there are a couple of bullet points and then questions at the bottom. And basically with the bullet points, depending on the group that you are teaching, you can decide to kind of skim down to just one bullet point, or you know, see how the conversation is going with the children. But the bullet points are meant to be very short and sweet, and you can kind of progress. So with older students, you might go through all the bullet points, you might go through all the questions. With younger children, you might move along at a little bit faster pace, and that's fine too. Whatever seems to be working is great. Okay. So I'm just going to click through. This is one of Mondrian's earlier work. So he started out being more realistic, and then his art really evolved quite quickly after encountering Pablo Picasso's Cubist work. So the big idea number 2 is that Mondrian went through different stages as an artist until he finally arrived at his artistic destination, which is what he's famous for, his geometric kind of primary colors, abstract art. But I think this is a nice big idea to reinforce with the children how artists explore and try different things, and they should feel very comfortable. It doesn't have to be perfect. They don't have to be totally comfortable with where they are as an artist, that all artists evolve and explore and experiment. And that's all that we want to encourage them to do, is to have fun and experiment and try different things until they find their own destination. And we hope that artists inspire them, other artists inspire them the way Piet Mondrian was inspired by Pablo Picasso. So this is actually a Picasso piece that he saw at the exhibit. This was in 1911 in Paris. And so Mondrian was exposed to Cubism, and that really transformed how he expressed himself artistically. So here's where you're going to kind of do a little fast forward through the PowerPoint slide. I'm taking you back. In the PowerPoint, you'll go back to this one of his early works. And you're going to watch how the tree, his understanding of trees evolved after being influenced by Picasso. So I'm going to go through it really quickly, but what I'm thinking I'll do when I do this presentation is kind of set it up, and you have in the notes a little bit of setup. Let's see how Mondrian's art evolved after being introduced to Picasso's Cubism. And the slide before gives you notes on what Cubism is and how to explain it. So I'm going to quickly show you 5 pieces of his art, and I want you to watch carefully, and then let's talk about how his style changed. So watch the tree. So here it is in his first earlier versions of trees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I would stop here, and there's some notes to help you to kind of facilitate a conversation. You might decide to go back and do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's pretty amazing to me to see how that tree evolves and gets more angular, and he starts to drop away from organic shapes and gets much more abstract. So that's a really like a fast forward little section to provoke some conversation with the children about how his art started to evolve. So he stopped using curved lines and only straight lines. He started to get more geometric, and he also started eliminating all color except for black, white, and gray. And he also started to focus on just the primary colors. So here's the next, his art starting to look more like where he landed. All of his work was starting to get very abstract now, and he started really feeling strongly that the essence of painting was line and color. So here's another chance for you to do a little fast forward. Just watch carefully and see how his art continues to evolve. Now he's getting more into primary colors, more angular. Sorry, I'm going to go back to that one. Okay, so the big idea number 3 is that he was the founder of an art movement that's called Style. It's a German word. You'll see it written down in the notes. And this is another one that I had to listen to a few times and try and figure out how do you pronounce it. But I wrote the pronunciation in the in parentheses, de style, and it's basically just de style. But you can say it with a little accent if you want to try. Anyway, so he was one of the founders of this movement of art that believed that art, the essence of art is line and color, that the basic form in art is a rectangle, that the purest art colors are red, yellow, and blue, the primary colors, and non-colors are black, white, and gray. And that's the essence of art. So then there's a slide that just shows about how this movement, the artists who were part of this movement applied their theory to not just painting, but sculpture, architecture, interior design, furniture design, graphic design, fashion. So the movement only lasted about 17 years, but it was very influential. So this is just an example of a room. And so there's some prompts there to talk about how does this room represent the style movement. Okay, and then we're going to get into the art project. So the students are going to try their hand at doing a de style painting. We have tempera paint and painter's tape and brushes, and I'm going to quickly walk you through the process. This is a pretty simple project. It's a little bit messy, but let's talk through how to make this as simple and straightforward as possible. The one thing that you do want to try and collect ahead of time is some newspaper. So I'm trying to collect newspaper. We don't have a subscription to a newspaper anymore, but if you can ransack yours or somebody else's recycling bin and grab a newspaper or two, I'm hoping that we keep a nice supply of newspaper for keeping desks as clean as possible. Okay, so everybody is going to get, let me turn this down. Everyone's going to get a canvas. So really excited that we're getting a chance to start off with a bang. Every child is going to get a canvas. This is one where we do not have many extras at all. So we really want to encourage children to focus on their art and give this a try. If it's not perfect, we embrace that and kind of reinforce the idea that Mondrian evolved and tried different things. So we don't have a lot of extras here, but everyone will get a canvas. You want to make sure that they write their name on the back before they get started. And this is something, again, if you have extra hands on deck, either really while the presentation is going on, I would want to go around and start to set up the table so that the students can jump into this project as soon as you're done with the presentation and transition to the tables and get started. So I think what I'm going to try in my classrooms is to get the newspaper out and give a piece or a half of a piece of newspaper to each desk or student space. I don't think that the entire table needs to be covered with newspaper, but just enough paper for the canvas to set on. And then you're going to set up the paint. And so here's the thing with getting the paint set up. So every student isn't going to get their own paintbrush. They're going to work with a set of paints. And I think if they're tables that are grouped together, usually they're like 6 children at a table, you might have 2 sets of paint. They're going to be working with 3 colors and 3 colors only. And I would encourage for this project, we're really going to try and experience the de style movement. And this isn't a paint mixing project. So there might be a chance at the end for the children to mix paints, but for the sake of this project and giving this de style genre a try, what you're going to do is there's cups on the cart, and there's going to be by colors. So you're going to use 1 paintbrush for each color, and the children are going to share cups. So there's going to be the blue cup with the blue paint and the blue paintbrush, and then there's going to be another cup that's the red paint with the paintbrush that's used for the red paint. So they'll share the paint and work that way, rather than every student having their own paintbrush and trying to keep the 3 colors separate. You're going to set up sets of blue paint, red paint, and yellow paint, and have them share. And since they'll be working with 1 color at a time, it shouldn't be a problem for them to share a set of paints. You can have 3 children working with a set, and then they just rotate as they want to use the different colors. So that's a note. And on the cart, you're going to see jugs of tempera paint. Again, there's 3 colors. And this is a project that doesn't require a whole lot of paint. So if you can go easy, I really wouldn't fill up the cup more than just a little bit at the bottom, and you can always refill as you go along. But my experience with this project was that it didn't require a whole lot of paint in order to cover the canvas. So the other thing that they need, in addition to having the paint set out and their canvas, is painter's tape. And there's painter's tape on the cart, and every child is going to get about 50 inches. We need to be a little bit budgetary with this because the painter's tape is expensive. This is something that if a child just needs a little bit more tape, no worries, we'll replenish. But in general, we've calculated out to have about 50 inches per child. And I've marked that off on the cart so that you can measure it out. And this is something else that you might want to do either in the few minutes before you go into the session, or as the presenter is going on, just measure out and have that ready to go. And maybe tape these to the back of the chair, you know, just stick them onto the back of the chair so as they sit down, they immediately have their tape. So it's a very simple process. They basically measure out how much tape they want to make their first design. They're going to use the tape to create geometric designs on the canvas. So you just take a piece. I just turned it over and taped it around the back. And this is totally, you know, open and free. However the children want to set up their painting, they can. Hopefully this is, and you know, the style movement was really about the rectangle as being the perfect shape, but certainly you can encourage them to go in other directions and make triangles or any other shapes that they want or feel that they want to make with the tape. Okay, so once they've used up their tape, they're ready to get painting, and basically their goal is to fill out the geometric paint shapes that they created. My hair stuck there. To paint, use the primary colors to fill in the shapes that they've created. So they might start out with blue and decide I want this to be my blue triangle, and then they're going to switch over, pass the blue paint cup and paintbrush to one of their friends and grab the yellow and just go about painting the filling in their geometric designs in whatever way that they want. One note for older students that I mentioned in the notes is that this painter's tape is very easy to cut, and there are scissors on the cart. So I don't know if this would be an easy thing to do. In fact, I'm pretty sure it would not be an easy thing to do with kindergartners or the younger children. But for the older kids, if you just double it over, fold it over a few times, and it sticks to itself, but it's really okay because this painter's tape is very forgiving. It doesn't stick hard. It's not like duct tape or something that you can't undo. Oops. So there's scissors on the cart, and basically if you just fold it over, and you can cut it in half and actually double the amount of tape that you have. And then I just open it back up. And again, this takes a little bit of fine motor skills, but I think for the older students, they should be able to do it. So then you have a thinner line and more tape to work with. So you might encourage the older kids to give that a try as well. Then you have a thinner line. It may not be exactly a straight line, but it definitely gives you more tape to play around with, and you can make more individual shapes to work with. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, that's not something that I would encourage with younger kids. And I think even if you started introducing that as something you would help with, it's fairly straightforward, but I can't imagine trying to start cutting tape for 26 children in the middle of the session. So use your judgment, decide what works for you, but that's just a suggested idea for one way to go a little bit further with this project and get a little bit more mileage out of the tape. Okay, so once they've painted, I'll show you the version. This is actually one that my 4-year-old did, and she had a lot of fun with the with putting the tape down. So you'll see I left this one piece on. So as they're painting, there's going to be paint that goes over onto the tape. That's absolutely fine. And now I've peeled off the tape over here, and I left one on just to show you. What I think is going to happen in the classroom is you're going to want these to dry. So let the teacher know that there's going to need to be a space for these to dry. And by the time you leave, they won't be dry enough to remove the tape. You want to make sure that the paint is completely dry before you remove the tape, but you're going to want to walk the children through this process and encourage them. This isn't, the kids don't know bikini waxing, but this isn't like a rip off the Band-Aid kind of process. Once the paint is dry, you want to go very carefully and slowly to peel back the tape. It should be fine, but you just don't want to do it too fast because you don't want to rip any of the paint off that you didn't mean to rip off. And there are the white lines. I'm trying to think if there's anything else as far as the project. Please hang on to the cups when the children are done. Please have them rinse out the cups. This might be a time if you got a lot of interest in mixing the primary colors. Once they've finished doing their artwork, maybe you give them some paper towels, or if there's some extra newspaper, you could encourage them if they wanted to go ahead and do some paint mixing after everyone's finished their projects. That could be a fun little extension. But if not, please just have them rinse out the cups and rinse out the paintbrushes. As long as the cup is still in cup form and hopefully has not gotten crunched, please put it back on the cart so that we can reuse those. And let's see, I wanted to show you the cart. So there's the cart all ready to go. When you are finished, please, if you could do your best to put it back looking more or less like this, so that it's all set to go for the next group. You'll see that there are boxes on the bottom with the canvases, the paints on the middle shelf. I have a little note there about shaking the gallon of paint before you pour it. Some of the paints are older, so they've settled a little bit, but Marina and I did some practice with them and they work just fine. They're a little watery, but that's fine. Just make sure you give them a good shake before you start pouring them out into the cups. There's that little stack of newspaper. The presentation is on your the jump drive, and so that will be on the cart, as well as a copy of the notes, the printout with the notes underneath it. This is also something that was emailed to you with the link to this video. There's also, where did it go? Oh yes, the full page version of it, and this is your backup in case you don't have the thumb drive and you're not able for some reason to go onto the computer in the teacher's on the teacher's computer and access either your email that has this PowerPoint, or you can go onto the Grace Art tab of the PTA website and open the PowerPoint that way. So again, you don't need to have this to access the PowerPoint as long as you can get online. But if the smart board's not working, or I've gone in sometimes when there's a sub and there's not even a computer at all, you always have a copy of a printout of the PowerPoint presentation. So obviously it's not as engaging as having everything up on the screen, but in a pinch it works. And I just encourage you, if you need to do a more abridged version, just focus on a few of the slides instead of going through the entire PowerPoint, but you always have that on the cart if you need it. The last thing I wanted to tell you about is the books. So Miss Siegel pulled out this really cool book. It's called Copper Nickel Goes Mondrian. And it's kind of a fun, it's not a super short story, but it's not heavy in text. So take a read of it and you can decide if this is something that you think would be interesting for your children, depending on the age level. But I think it works, and it does a nice job of kind of introducing Mondrian style through this character that's looking for the future. That's how it says. He's looking for the future, and as he kind of explores the world, he gets closer and closer to Mondrian style. So you'll have that on the cart. The other book that I'm going to put on the cart is this one, which is not a Mondrian book, but I thought it was a nice one to kick off the school year with the children. It's called I Am an Artist. This one is really basic. It's very nice for the younger children, and it just talks about how we're all artists and different ways that you can be an artist. So this is, I'm an artist when I follow a line where it leads me. I'm an artist when I see, when I find a face in a cloud or watch the light change the shape of a hill. So it just goes very simply. It's kind of a pretty little book that talks about being an artist just by observing and looking and listening. So that's another one that might be nice for you to read if you decide that Copper Nickel feels like, especially for the younger kids, maybe a little bit long, or you decide. So those will both be available to you. And I think that's everything. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to email anytime with any ideas or sharing. And when this prep session goes out, I hope if you have some thoughts or ideas or ways that you'd like to kind of tweak this and make it your own, we'd love to hear from you and love for you to share. And again, the notes and the structure of this is really meant to just be a help and a guide, but go for it in whatever way feels good to you, and can't wait to hear how it goes. That's it. So good luck. Happy grace arting, and I'll see you soon.